Order. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Health. I am Danny McGill of the MLA for Pictou Centre, the chair of this committee. Today we'll hear from Nova Scotia Health, IWK Health, the IWK Foundation, and Kim White regarding improving the health of women and gender diverse Nova Scotians. I ask you please set your phones to silent. Now I ask the committee members to please introduce themselves for the records by stating their name and constituency, and we'll start to my left.
My name is IWK Father Gambler for Clayton Park West and the Vice Chair for the Health Committee.
Susan Corcoran-Greek, MLA for Lunenburg. Welcome.
Ryan Robichaud, MLA for Clare, and welcome today.
Good afternoon, Nick Hilton, MLA for Yarmouth.
Ian Rankin, Timberley Prospect.
Rod Wilson, Halifax, Armdale.
Claudia Chender at Dartmouth South.
Okay, thank you. And for the purpose of Hansard, I recognize the presence of Chief Legislative Counsel Gordon Hebb on my left and Legislative Committee Clerk Judy Kavanaugh on my right. So welcome to the witnesses. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. We really appreciate it. And I think we'll start with opening remarks. And first, we'll ask Ms. White, please, for opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kim White. I am currently going through breast cancer survival, I guess would be the word. This has been a very tough road for me. And I'm not going to make my opening statement, which I submitted to everyone in this caucus today. I've decided to leave the opportunity to the current majority government to ask me questions based on the statement and the timeline of events that I have submitted to you all. I'm not going to tell my story from my words. I want you to tell my story through your questions. So I'm hoping and anticipating that a government that is claiming to have transparency and that has all this power and has responsibility with this power. I am right now, I do not classify myself as a survivor because I haven't survived yet. And I need you to take the power you have, be responsible with that power, and ask me questions based on my opening statement and based on the timeline of failures that I've pointed out. And just to make sure that you're held to be accounted for your questions to me directly, I have submitted the same documents to a lovely reporter who told my story back in October. With that, I say thank you, and you can move on.
Thank you, Ms. White. So next we'll ask for IWK, Ms. Larocque.
Hi,
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, fellow, and witnesses and members of the committee. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge and sincerely thank Mrs. White for her personal journey here today with us. We recognize that it takes a lot of courage to speak openly about your journey and your experiences, and we're grateful for her willingness to do so. Stories like hers are very powerful for us in the healthcare system. They deepen our understanding, and they continue to inform our work and help us drive meaningful improvements in care. My name is LeeAnn Larocque. As stated before, I'm the Vice President of Clinical Care Learning and Chief Nurse Exec at IWK Health, and I'm joined here today with my colleagues. Stacy Burgess is the Vice President of Clinical Support and System Integration, and Dr. Jim Bentley, who is the Head of Obstetrics and Gynaecology. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about improving the health of women and gender diverse individuals in Nova Scotia, work that is central to the IWK mandate and our health authority's mission, essential not only to individuals and well-being, but also to the strengthening of our families and the long-term sustainability of our healthcare system. At IWK Health, we provide specialized and tertiary care level services across the lifespan. This includes reproductive and sexual health, maternity and newborn services, gynecology, breast health, mental health, and gender-affirming care. For many Nova Scotians, IWK serves as the point of complex women's health issues and services for Nova Scotia. Many investments have occurred while we will speak throughout our time here with you today. However, it's important for us to recognize that demand for these services continues to grow. Population increases, rising clinical complexities, and gender awareness of conditions such as fibroids, menopause, and breast health have contributed to higher referral volumes than we've ever experienced. As a result, wait times in some areas, particularly gynecology, remain longer than what we would like. We are acutely aware that behind every referral is an individual awaiting care to access. At the same time, we are also making measurable progress and to expand capacity and modernize our care delivery. Through targeted investments from approved business cases from the Department of Health and Wellness, we have increased clinical capacity, we have upgraded our diagnostic imaging equipment, strengthened referral triage processes, and strengthened system navigation. These are important structural changes that are enabling more timely and appropriate access to care. Support from our IWK Foundation has also accelerated research and innovation. The introduction of an Assessa as a minimally invasive fibroid treatment system is one example. This approach offers patients an alternative to more invasive surgery, reduces recovery time, and helps minimize and optimize the use of operating room capacity. We have also hired our first Women's Health Accelerated Chair in Women's Health that has been vastly supported by our IWK Foundation, and also working with the Breast Health Research Unit that also has been supported by the Foundation. Recently, we have been looking at advancing menopause care with a new announcement. With new provincial investments, we're working in partnership with Nova Scotia Health, the Menopause Society, and establishing a dedicated menopause clinic in addition to our current complex menopause clinic that we currently have at IWK. This will address long-standing gaps in care and provide specialized assessment and treatment during the stage of life that has significant impacts on physical health, mental well-being, and workforce participation. Across all this work, equity remains a central focus. We recognize that women and gender diverse individuals experience barriers related to geography, income, race, and gender diversity. Our approach to service redesign is grounded in culturally responsive, trauma-informed, and inclusive care. Improving the health of women and gender diverse Nova Scotians is foundational to our high-performing, sustainable healthcare system. When we support patients earlier, provide timely treatment, and address life stage health needs, we reduce downstream pressures across the continuum of care. IWK remains committed to continued progress, evidence-based and informed care, and strong partnerships. My colleagues and I look forward to your questions that you have today.
Thank you, Ms. Larocque. And next we'll move to Dr. Elliott Rose from Nova Scotia Health.
Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today and to discuss women and gender diverse care. I'd like to echo LeeAnn's words to you, Ms. White. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your courage. The only way that we make different changes and differences in your care and the care of others is to hear from you and to hear the voices of women and gender diverse people, so thank you so much. At Nova Scotia Health, we are focused on advancing women's health and ensuring care is equitable, inclusive, and accessible for all. Every day, I see the commitment of our teams across the province working to improve care and outcomes. This is work I care deeply about, both as a woman personally and as a leader. I see the we are proud of the work that people do, and we are aware that there is more to do. And being here is about having that conversation about what's working well and the more that we need to do. We remain committed to listening, learning, and continuously improving. And we are seeing some progress, some meaningful progress. Care is becoming more accessible both in urban areas and rural communities through our health homes and primary health care. It's becoming more culturally responsive through various services, and we'd like to share some of that information with you today. And we're expanding education and support for patients and providers to make sure they have the knowledge and skills to provide the care for Nova Scotians. Access to primary care remains a priority, as often the first point of contact for women and gender-diverse people in the healthcare system. We also have Well Women clinics across the province to provide accessible services and education. These clinics are delivered by physicians and nurse practitioners working in interprofessional teams. They require no referral and are available to individuals whether or not they have a primary care provider. Please check out that information on the Your Health NS app or through 811. Nova Scotia Health delivers approximately half of the babies in the province at the regional facilities, and we are proud of the care our teams provide throughout the pregnancy and childbirth journey. Services that women and families rely on to expand include things like sexual health services, pregnancy and parenting supports, and midwifery care across the province. Public health and the early years programs play a vital role by supporting families with infant feeding, sleep, mental health, growth and development, immunizations, and more. These supports make a meaningful difference in the early stages of life, and we know it's so important for people to have a good start. Partnerships with communities continue to strengthen care. Initiatives like the Nova Scotia Sisterhood Clinics, and you'll learn more about that today, hopefully, ensure African and Black Nova Scotian receive culturally appropriate and responsive care. Investment in innovation is improving outcomes. This work requires collaboration, and there are strong examples of progress across the province. Work is underway in partnership with others, and many others here at this table, on the first of its kind in Canada Menopause Centre of Excellence. So we want excellence to strengthen care in all life stages for all people, including women and gender-diverse people. We have investments such as the Deanne Reeve Public Health Suite at the Dartmouth General Hospital and the Dr. Maria Angewin Memorial Wise Road Health Clinic, which is a partnership with the IWK. This is all improving access and specialized and community-based care. At the QE2, the Da Vinci surgical system is expanding access to minimally invasive procedures, including gynecologic oncology surgeries. These approaches result in smaller incisions, less pain, faster recovery, and greater precision. With support from the QE2 Foundation and the Orchid Women's Health Initiative, we have a second system that was introduced earlier this year, helping to expand access and attract new specialists. And we have a state-of-the-art robotics training system at the QE2, where people come to train from the region and across the country. Important progress has been made in gender-affirming care. Nova Scotia has the highest proportion of transgender and non-binary individuals aged 15 to 24 in Canada, and we are working to meet those needs. Nova Scotia Health now offers a dedicated program for gender-affirming chest surgery, improving access and reducing the need for out-of-province care. We are seeing good outcomes and positive feedback from patients. We recognize that the system has not always met expectations, and we hear that clearly by working alongside healthcare providers, partners, and most importantly, patients and families. We are focused on continuous improvement so that every Nova Scotian, including women and gender-diverse people, access timely, respectful, and high-quality care. Thank you. We look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. And next we have Ms. Gillivan from the IWK Foundation. There you go.
Kim, I feel your pain. I see you. and I'm so sorry you're on this journey. Let's try and turn it into something positive. The IWK Foundation has always fundraised and supported women's health care at the IWK Health. We've been very successful in raising hundreds of millions of dollars towards health over the years. Predominantly, those funds have supported pediatrics, mental health, research, and women's health. One of our goals was to expand our support of women's health care and research. Through this work, we've learned about the systemic bias in health systems locally, nationally, and globally. It was this understanding of the healthcare and research gap in women's health that led to our strategic approach to be a catalyst for change. Our motto is we have to educate, advocate, mobilize to equalize. In January 2024 and 25, McKinsey Health Institute, in partnership with the World Economic Forum, published a report released at Davos called Closing the Women's Health Gap, a $1 trillion opportunity to improve lives and economies, drawing on extensive global and national data. The report shows how poor health among women translates into lost productivity, shorter working lives, and wider inequities, offering one of the clearest pictures yet of how this gap affects women and it affects Canada's future. We are working to promote transformational changes at a regional and national and even international level to reimagine women's health, but it's going to take all of us. 1 year ago, we set out these goals: to continue to support fundraising efforts to improve and change equipment, programs, and facilities at IWK Health, to explore the opportunity to develop an accelerated research institute solely to study women's health, to establish stakeholder alignments to support our organization's goals to act as a transformational leader, to give women a voice and advocate for changes that will change the future of women's health in the Maritimes, and to push for a commitment from the federal government to create a Canadian national women's health strategy. Currently, Canada is the only G7 nation without such a strategy. What did we do? The voice of maritime women, the unspoken burden of women's health, garnered 27,317 responses from the Maritimes and has become to date the largest open survey on women's health in Canada. Some of the key stats: over 75% of women admitted to delaying or avoiding care altogether. 56% report health issues that actively disrupt their day-to-day life. 70% of women feel the current system does not meet their needs. 86% of women agree significant changes are needed to improve women's health care. Top issues women wanted prioritized: menopause, hormonal health, stress, anxiety and depression, obesity, weight management, sleep disorders, heart disease, and cancer. We believe in educating ourselves and each other, and so we launched the podcast, The Fifth Wave, Curing the Healthcare Bias Against Women, which is now currently sitting in the top 25% globally. We've established relationships with Women's Health Collective Canada, a partnership between 5 health foundations across Canada. Each partner organization is partnered with their research arms, and in turn, we are connected to over 1,000 researchers in Canada. European Institute of Women's Health, we actually contributed to their manifesto and their plan, which ultimately became the draft strategy presented to the European Union. We were the only Canadians to do so. Deloitte Canada, we partnered on a pan-Canadian paper called The Case for Advancing Women's Health in Canada, advocating for a national women's health strategy, and as a member of WHCC, developed a blueprint for action with McKinsey and Company in Canada, an evidence-based roadmap to close the women's health gap. Steering Committee for the Framework on Women's Health, we're very involved in this. This is the work led by Senator Henkel to pass Bill S-243, and the IWK Foundation has been at the table pushing for this bill. We launched in February a movement called WHEN, Women's Health Equity Now, and we're focused on fundraising and supporting and advocating in the following areas: education, research, innovation, leadership, and care. The 27,371 women who responded to our survey and the rest of the women who have come forward to help are our North Star. and they guide us as we build support locally, regionally, and participate in a national and global movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gillivan. And I will skip the step here. I just ask, maybe I'll introduce the name. You can say who you're with. So, Ms. Burgess.
Stacy Burgess. Vice President of Clinical Support and System Integration, IWK.
Thank you, Mrs. Burgess. Dr. Bentley.
James Bentley, Department Head for Obstetrics and Gynaecology, IWK, and also for Central Zone.
Thank you, Dr. Bentley. Ms. Creighton.
Heather Creighton, Vice President of Women's Strategy and Partnerships with the IWK Foundation.
Thank you. And Ms. Liz.
Nicole Sliz, Women's Strategy and Projects Lead at the IWK Foundation.
Okay, thank you all very much. The opening remarks are now concluded. We'll begin the question and answer period. Please everyone wait for the microphone to turn on. Wait for your name to be called. The microphone will turn on automatically. You don't have to press any buttons. Each caucus will get 20 minutes, with a second round of 10 minutes as time allows. And questioning will wrap up at 2:40 p.m. So we'll start with the NDP Caucus. MLA Chender.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Kim, for being here today. You've asked for the government to ask you questions, so I'm going to leave them that opportunity right at the top. I also want to acknowledge in the audience we have Rafa Di Costanzo, who is a former MLA who has been pioneering in her work on making sure that we don't ignore women's health in this arena, and also my colleague Elizabeth Smith-McCrossan, who is unable to join us at the table but is paying attention keenly. I want to start with some questions for the foundation. I have been very persuaded by the work that you've all done on a national strategy. And you spoke about this a bit, Ms. Gillivan, in your opening comments. I think that what your survey shows is how behind we are in our region, frankly. And we know this through your work, but we also, as MLAs, know this anecdotally, because of course we have hundreds of women and gender diverse people sharing their stories like those of Miss White. Just recently, we, a woman joined us at the legislature to talk about how she had lost an ovary due to delayed diagnosis of endometriosis and insufficient care, people whose diagnoses for breast cancer is missed, et cetera, et cetera. And so I wonder if we could imagine a situation, and I should say this is against the backdrop of a situation where often, when we ask questions about this, what we are told is we are fixing healthcare for everyone. And I think what your study shows is that we, as in your words, have some built-in systemic biases, and that we have to make a defined and strategic approach to fix healthcare for women and gender diverse people for that to actually become a reality. So I wonder if I could ask you, how might things, in your estimation, sitting where you do at the foundation, look differently in our healthcare settings if we had this women's health strategy at a national level? What kind of different investments might we see? What kind of different outcomes, different patient experience might we be able to see?
Recognize Ms. Gillivan.
Keeping an Irish woman to a mic that turns on. Okay. So I think what you have to look at is in general first. That's why I purposefully started my opening remarks bigger. So when you're in a system where less than 7% of our taxpayers' money is going to research our actual bodies, when women weren't even included until the 1990s in clinical trials, when it's only 9% of the curriculum is on women's bodies taught in med schools in general. When most, doctors I've talked to weren't trained on menopause. And menopause is a lightning rod because it's at that point, we have no choice as women. We're going to go through this, right? So when you see all of that, that is why we have focused in research, because the research is going to change and inform the care, right? That's number one for us. Educating ourselves, educating our doctors, educating ourselves on the new technology that's coming and making sure we have the teams that can do this. making women a priority and helping them advocate for themselves. That's part of why we're doing the podcast. It's to help women advocate for themselves. And then looking at what are the facilities, what is the equipment, and how can we partner together to reimagine a healthcare system. This is only my opinion, but like I feel women's health is precision medicine. It's never actually properly been done before. We've been sort of squeezed in, but really to actually focus truly on women's health, we need a national strategy. If you look at the other G7 nations and the countries like Australia, they all have a women's health strategy. And from that strategy, as provinces and regions, we can then use that as a guidepost to start working together. But there needs to be investment in women's health. We need to make women's health a priority across the board in society. And so I think we can look at all the problems, or I'm coming in maybe the only one on this panel, but I'm coming in saying, listen, we have opportunity here. We really do. We're in a moment in time that as we have this discussion today, it's happening all across this country and around the globe. We've met these leaders, we've met these people, we know what's happening. And I think women are done. And I think when you saw our results, and this was women's voices, this isn't my voice or anyone else's at this table, with the exception maybe of Kim, they're done. They're tired being dismissed, they're tired not being listened to, and they know that the system needs to change, and they want that to change. Otherwise, we're just going around in circles. So I don't know if that's answered your question, because I could literally go for hours here, but this thing's freaking me out a bit. So anyway, I'll stop there.
MLA Chender.
That's okay. I have more. I'll give you a little bit more to work with here. So we have been advocating for a provincial health strategy, and of course we believe that should be happening concurrently with what's happening federally. But we know that an enormous amount of any government spending is in health, and that this government in particular came to office promising to fix healthcare, and so it is our opinion that we ought to have a roadmap for that, particularly in an environment where we are dealing with those systemic inequalities, that if we don't have a roadmap that guides investment, that we not only risk, but we almost ensure that we will continue to perpetuate those systemic barriers. And so I wonder if you could speak to what you might see as the value of having a strategy that guides that kind of investment.
Ms. Gillivan?
Sorry. I think a strategy that is in partnership, it's not any one government, any one opposition, any one health authority is going to make this happen. We have to decide and put women as a priority in our society, in our province, in our country, and then we have to work together to create that strategy. But a strategy is like a map. You're in a car. You need a map to know where you're going, or a GPS nowadays, to know where you're going from A to B. And I just feel like there's a real value, but I also would say that the voice of women has to be at that table. Because what we've learned just from the survey we did was there wasn't really much of a difference in the answers from 3 provinces, rural, urban, it didn't matter. This is the women's experience, the women's voice, and they have a lot to say, and they know what they're talking about. And so they need to be at any table designing a strategy. But a dream of mine is to see a strategy nationally and a strategy provincially or regionally. And to start, I think you would see a reduction in spending in healthcare. I think women would suffer less and would go earlier and be diagnosed earlier, and preventative health. All of that would really help. And so I think we're at an inflection point in this country. And if we're going to build it strong and we're going to build our provinces strong, well, it's got to include the other 50% of the population.
MLA Chender.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I do think as women, we just have a different lived experience of this, right? Like the number of times in my pregnancies when I would go to the pharmacist and they would say, well, this hasn't been tested on pregnant women. We don't know if it's safe. It's like, well, why not? Why don't you know that? Or different barriers. So I think that's so helpful. And I want to jump off on this investment piece and the fiscal piece, because I think that this is really important. And I mean, one of our arguments, of course, is that a strategy doesn't have to cost a great deal of money in the doing, in the creation. But we also know that based on the McKinsey report that you cited, I think that the stat that was quoted there was that investment in women's healthcare would unlock $700 million in GDP or something like that. And so I wonder if you could speak a little bit about what the economic, so not just the potential savings, because I agree with you. I think this is a theme that, I think we've been clear, and I think the Auditor General has been clear, many people, that if we are more targeted, if we are clearer in what we are trying to achieve, that in fact that will be a more efficient use of funds. But I'm interested also in asking around what would the economic benefits of investing in women's healthcare be for the province, because I know you guys have done some thinking about that.
Ms. Gillivan?
So based on, not my opinion, but on the McKinsey report that I cited out of internationally, they actually just finished the blueprint in Canada. And so the femtech industry, which is basically predominantly female-led companies, entrepreneurial companies, who are creating medical devices and all kinds of interesting advances, are kind of almost the long tail of research. So if you think about research as and that's why we're looking at applied research at the IWK, it's to the bedside research. And then the long tail of that could be the femtech industry. And we have many entrepreneurs right now in our province doing this kind of work. Unfortunately, like most venture capital, they're getting less than 2% currently. But here's the interesting thing. If we were to close the health gap in this country in the next, by 2040, which is not that far off, we would actually contribute $37 billion to our economy. Currently today, we're losing $3.5 billion every year in Canada to menopause alone. McKinsey is telling you that there is a minimum $1 trillion opportunity with very little competition right now because of the bias sitting out there. And all of these countries are in a race now to go there. And yet when we're talking to people outside of our country, they're saying how amazing our researchers are in Canada. They have a huge reputation, and they are. And so if you think about marrying the researchers and the innovators as part of the strategy going forward, we could create all kinds of economic benefits and opportunities. So you're going to save, women are going to suffer less, but you're also in the driver's seat to take advantage of what's happening. Everywhere you go now, there's this conversation starting to happen about women's health care, about new devices, new technology, new procedures. And this is what McKinsey's talking about. So we actually have a blueprint for action, and they're actually going to be breaking it down regionally. We just don't have the regional version yet, but we will as part of our partnership with Women's Health Collective. So happy to showcase that once it comes our way. But safe to say, this is an emerging economy that would absolutely be, we could be a game changer and a leader out of this province or region.
MLA Chender?
That's really helpful, and I think it's helpful also to think about how, provincially, not just how are we supporting individual women on their kind of healthcare journey, but also how are we supporting the ecosystem. And I wonder, because I know that the foundation has been engaged, as you said, in the chair and in applied research, do you see that same systemic bias here in Nova Scotia? Because we do have that innovation ecosystem, but we are concerned about it. Do you see that same bias against funding for that kind of VC in particular here? And what could be done to sort of unlock opportunities in that sector?
Ms. Gillivan?
I think you just have to look at the stats. The stats are, it's around 2% of available capital for women, full stop. And then it gets even tougher if it's in the medical field. I will tell you that there's some amazing innovation happening right now at the IWK Health. That's my experience. I'm sure it's also happening, and you see some of it in NSHA as well. And so if you can see how some of this breakthroughs that they're having could actually then be turned into opportunities economically. I've met with innovators from Nova Scotia, and some of the work they're doing is just breathtaking. It's so good. but they can't get the venture cap. They can't get it to market. So that's you know, as we start to, I mean, I think we're in a really interesting time in this country, and I think this is the time, this is the moment to step in to that ring and say, okay, how do we invest? How do we do that? But it's all back to the same bias. If you're, you know, walking around, it's just, it is what it is. You've got to call it out. And I say, look, I'm not blaming anybody that got to this far, but when you know what you know, now what are you going to do about it? That's my motto. Right? It's not, I'm not going backwards as far as I'm concerned, we're going forwards. So how do we help? And so we've taken on what we can do as a foundation and support mainly of the IWK Health, but also our country, our community. But others have to also do the same. And they are. Some people, some volunteers and stuff are stepping up. We need all of us working together to make this change. It's a systemic change.
MLA Chender.
And maybe this is my last question for you guys. So one of the things that I've noticed is that often when there are technological advances, it feels like in this province, and this is my only unit of measure, we're very slow adopters when they benefit women and gender diverse people specifically. So I'm thinking of take-home HPV tests. I'm thinking of increased and better screening for breast cancers. All of these things, I'm thinking of, you know, even HRT therapy and what we understand about treating menopause, you know, birth control, things that have been adopted in public healthcare systems in our country, but not here. And I wonder if you could just speak to whether, back to my initial question, you know, having a strategy or a roadmap, do you think that would lead to an earlier adoption of those technologies and medical advances that we know would be of so much benefit to women and gender diverse people?
Ms. Gillivan.
No, it's never good at following rules. Like you look at, you know, HVP testing, BC and PEI are the two that are sort of in the lead, but we're also, I think this province is looking at it. It's not just the testing, then you have to have the staff behind it. That's why I feel strongly that a national strategy, because it's not equal all across the country. We might have something we're advanced in and then you can't get it in BC or vice versa. So it's not it's not like a woman has the same level or standard across the country. It's varying, right? So I think a national strategy would really help move the dial and create an equal playing field across the country. I was in Toronto at an event, and somebody said, but how could we possibly break it down province by province? And I said, well, the borders are coming down, and if we can sell beer across the province, we can sure start to figure this one out. It's possible. It's not impossible. So that's kind of what I feel.
Thank you. MLA Chender with 3 minutes remaining.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I think it's so important, in particular the survey you did, to have those voices at the table. And so often, even as women and gender diverse legislators, you know, when we talk about breast cancer, when we talk about what a pap smear means, when we talk about all those things, we have a different understanding of those things, even midwifery care, things like that. So it is so helpful in guiding us. So I want to thank the foundation again for that pioneering work. And in my last couple of minutes, I want to ask a question to the IWK Health Centre. So maybe it's Dr. Bentley, but you guys can figure out amongst you. We know that we wait nearly 3 times longer than other Canadians for gynecological care, and you mentioned that in the opening remarks, but our understanding is that, you know, we are nearly staffed up, and so there is some, you know, often when we ask this question, we're met with, well, we have team-based care, we're expanding primary care, but that's not really the question I'm asking. I'm asking about people who need to be referred to specialty gynecological care who are waiting years. Can you speak to that wait list?
Dr. Bentley with 1 minute, 40 seconds remaining. Dr. Bentley.
Big topic in 1 minute and 40
I'm
seconds.
sure it will get hit.
Okay, so I mean, gynecological wait times are a huge problem. They weren't really on the radar, particularly before COVID. And they ended up with a lot of changes after that, with the changes in provincial demographics and the changes in availability of primary care. And it seems to us, when we look at the data, that we've gradually had more than 500 referrals at the IWK, and I know it's the same around the province for the other 40 or so gynecologists around the province. 500 referrals we get a month. And it is a challenge to see those patients in a timely fashion. So we've had additional resources put at us. We've had additional innovations with nurse-led triage pathways, introducing NPs into the mix. But we still have a huge increase in demand, a change in demographics with a lot of newcomers to Nova Scotia who are between the ages of 30 or 25 and 50, which are all in that prime gynecological period of your life. And so we have increasing difficulties to see those patients. And that is despite having extra gynecologists. And we've probably had about 5 extra gynecologists to help us with general gynecology, extra endometriosis surgeons, generalists, menopause specialists. We are doing what we can with the resources we have. And I fully appreciate the waits are way, way, way longer than they should be for what is felt to be when we triage patients as elective or non-urgent procedures. We get the patients in with cancer quickly.
Sorry to cut you off there. So we'll move on to the Liberal Caucus and MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank all of you for being here on an important topic. We put this topic forward back last year after the survey came out, and it was really important for us to shine a light on the work that you're doing. And I want to talk about the work and the follow-up in February with the Women's Health Equity Now launch. I was happy to be there and support, and I want to get to that. But for the flow of the meeting, I think the issue around wait times for gynecology is alarming, disastrous, and we need to figure it out. So I think, the question I want to ask is, when the minister says that they have a full complement, and I gather from your answer that when Dr. Bentley, you're saying that you're doing what you can with the resources that you have, that doesn't really line up. Maybe the complement has to grow, maybe you need more resources, but the efficiency of the system is what I'm most curious about, because I happen to know someone in my community that has been trying to access care, being told that it's going to be upwards of 3 years with severe quality of life impact to that individual, barely able to leave her house with a uterine prolapse. And when we know there are other regions in the province that have shorter wait lists, I mean, the idea between having one health authority was to be able to efficiently use the resources that we have. When we know that there's a shorter wait list in the eastern region, and maybe this is a question better asked to the health authority, because there is obviously demand in the central zone. Why can we not have that person looked at, and why do they have to use their own private money to find care from a nurse practitioner?
Okay, Dr. Bentley.
So specific diagnoses go to specific specialties and subspecialties, and as over my career, in 30 years in obstetrics and gynaecology, there has been more subspecialization, and prolapse is one of those things that is best dealt with by the subspecialists that deal with that, and that for us is our urogynecologists or pelvic medicine specialists. And we have 4 people who do that. They are all in central zone at the IWK, and yes, we have horrendous wait times for those. Could we deal with more of those people? Yes, we could. Do we have all the resources we need? We have some of the resources, but we have challenges there, and we have a program to expand our surgical services at some stage or other. Some of that care that it can be done in around the province and can be gone through the systems to look at everything else, but I do know that around the province, I mean, they are up to quota in the regionals areas for the most part. I think there's 1.8 vacancy for obstetrics and gynecology in the province at this point in time. So, yeah, I mean, I fully accept that is not satisfactory, and the surgeons will be the first to tell you that they are operating on people with worse prolapse because the waits are long, and that is a real significant issue. patient demographics are against us as the baby boomers are getting older, and a lot more people who've, getting into that age when prolapse is a big issue. Yeah.
Anyone else? No? Okay. MLA Rankin?
Yeah, I'm happy to hear from others. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is it's specialized in central zone, but to get an assessment, to have an assessment from a specialist when receptionists are telling people in eastern zone that they have a lot less time to wait, and this is something that's very debilitating. So I want to just ask, like, what's the process to actually use the resources we have to have people looked at?
Dr. Rose?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So it may be easier just for all of our shared understanding to describe the system a little bit first. So we work in a tiered model, and we work in a distributed model for some services. So I know there were comments earlier around primary health care, and we know primary health care is foundational to our system. So if we build the primary health care system in a good way, and now 94% of Nova Scotians have a primary care provider, primary care team, and we increase the services available in primary health care, and we increase the skills and competencies of people in primary health care, then some of those needs for women and gender diverse people can be met at the level of primary health care. And then that changes the demand coming to specialists in regional centers or into the tertiary centers. We are in a distributed model when it comes to what we call wait one, and I say this because all waiting is waiting for women and gender diverse people. In the system, we tend to think about wait one being the time to see a specialist, so the time it goes from a referral from primary health care to see a specialist. Wait two is the time from seeing the specialist to the time you have surgery, if surgery is indicated, right? So we have better data in wait two around surgery. There's been a lot of work in the last couple of years around centralizing the wait two data around surgical services, and more work needs to happen in wait one. Because right now, for instance, the gynecologists around the province would have their own wait lists and sometimes their own offices in communities. So we need to combine some of that, and work is underway to do that so that women and gender diverse people, so Nova Scotians, have line of sight around what are the resources around the province, and if they choose to go outside of the place where they're living to another community, to another zone for care, then they have the ability to do that. So I should mention too that my colleague, Dr. Cheryl Pugh, is here today. She's an obstetrician, and she's the medical lead in Western Zone, and she has some additional information around wait time, if that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Elliott Rose. My apologies for not saying the full name before. Move on back to MLA Rankin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll get back to wait times, I think, later, but I do want to make sure I hear from the Foundation on the work that's happening. And, we all take the note that primary care is important, but when you learn that 75% of women don't feel like they're being adequately addressed by that system, like, we need systems change, and I think that's what the crux of the report is advocating for. So my colleague kind of asked this in a different way, but what are some real examples that the provincial government can be doing to implement that systems change, to try to lead a type of strategy? We tabled a bill as well that looked at a strategy, but the report and the when is looking for partnerships between federal, provincial researchers, hospitals, foundations, and others. So what's something that the committee can be helpful with in advocating alongside all of you to really push the provincial government to act?
Ms. Gillivan?
Waiting on the red light. I'm not an expert in systems. My colleagues here would be more of an expert in that. But what I would say, I'm probably someone who's maybe, I believe in common sense. So what I would say is we could all come together and look at the system as it is, and including women at the table, and we could all decide if women is the priority or a priority or one of the top priorities of this province, then okay, let's actually work together, because it's not one over the other that's going to create this. It's going to be a combined effort. I will tell you that we've supported through the generosity of donors, so the public and people with resources are stepping up into the fray, and there's some amazing projects happening right now at the IWK that will alleviate or help in some of these key areas, but it's not an answer on its own. And I really feel for a lot of these, like Jim and his colleagues, because they're working night and day and they're doing the best they can. But it's upon all of us as a community and as a society. If we decide this is important, then let's all come together and let's bring the best of our talent and our know-how and the women's voice. The women's voice has got to be there. And let's actually create a strategy that will address this, because it's all of those prongs. It's research, it's the system, it's the equipment, it's the talent, it's the new technology that's coming on stream that we don't even know what to do with it yet. Like, it's coming so fast. So what are all those pieces? Take the best of everything that we have to offer as a society in our region, and actually create it ourselves, and create it with industry, create it with those innovators, create it with the philanthropists. They're there. They're putting their money where their mouth is. Those donors are stepping up. And I think what we did differently was honest to God, it was just organic. We just went out and asked women. And that is actually something that doesn't happen a lot. And that's the response we got. So they're telling you, they're giving you the roadmap. And so I think it's all of us working together. I don't know if you guys want to, I don't know how to do health systems. Don't even put me near there, but I know you guys have a better shot at that than me. I don't know if that answered you, but.
MLA Rankin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was going to go through each one of your areas of focus, but maybe I'll just package, because we have limited time, but I'll just package it in, what can we do in those 5 areas in education and in research. I mean, we have more universities per capita than anywhere else. We have the med school, another med school coming, and as you said, 9% of the med school curriculum is focused on women. And then the third area was innovation. We talked a little bit about the economic impact, and the fourth being advocacy and partnerships, which really should be the strategy. But, should there be a provincial minister of women's health? Should there be specific policy tools that we could, and then the fifth, of course, is equipment and patient spaces. So I was going to ask one on each, but I'll just probably ask it all together, and maybe Heather and Nicole want in on this. But what kinds of investments should the provincial government be making? What kinds of collaboration do you see? What is possible with to help that work?
Ms. Gillivan?
I think those are the key areas that are listed in there, and underneath them is subsets, obviously, right? How much it costs, I have no idea. I think it's not just cost. I think when you asked me the question about investing, it's also an economic engine. You've got to look at this as an opportunity. And if women are heard and felt and are believed, and they are coming to a system that's really starting to design it for them, they're going to come earlier and sooner, and they're not. And if we have the access for that we just talked about, so I think it's all of that together. I don't know if you want to step in. It's hard to kind of put a number and say here's what it is. I just think it's the will to prioritize women and their health care, and then work together.
Ms. Creighton.
So yes, is the answer to some of the things you suggested. A provincial women's health strategy, yes. Government can announce that. A women's health minister, yes. Great, let's start. All of those things are yes. We can't give you specifics under each of those because we haven't had even a wish list to think that that's possible. But if you start with a women's health strategy in Nova Scotia and you start with a women's health minister, let's get started, let's talk. It's going to happen federally, it's coming. And I think you're going to see every province respond accordingly. But Nova Scotia can lead, so let's start that now. And that announcement, sends a huge message. And then let's look at the specifics. I mean, we could probably all list 5 things right now that could be done, right? HPV testing at home, universal contraception, like all of those pieces. We see other countries and other provinces doing it. But let's just make the first step and say we're going to have a provincial women's health strategy and start.
MLA Rankin, 7 minutes remaining.
7 minutes, okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree. I think that's great suggestions. Okay, I do want to get back to the discussion around wait times for women. I happen to spend significant time over the last 4 years at the IWK in my personal life and have had conversations with folks, and now we're running through watching the whole OPOR be implemented at the IWK. So we hear about the administrative burden that's putting on doctors in urology. When before that was in place, there was very much an effort to reduce burden on doctors and have less time putting on paperwork. So I'm hearing that wait times are actually being impacted, that we're adding to wait times. I know for a fact that there's missed appointments, and I know that people aren't getting notified of appointments in time. So I just want to ask how we're evaluating, as succinctly as you can tell us, how we're looking at that whole exercise of implementation of OPOR and how that's impacting specifically on the wait times and missed appointments for women.
Ms. Larocque?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I actually am the lead for implementing OPOR at the IWK, so as the executive sponsor for that. And you're absolutely correct in terms of, adding some wait times to our current patient wait lists, but it differs depending on which service that you're looking at. And so we've had some great successes with OPOR implementation in our peri-op environment, and they have actually regained their pre-OPOR numbers, which is fantastic. Where we're struggling is in the ambulatory care space, and working very closely with the OPOR team in terms of what that is about and why we're struggling and what we can do from enhancements in the system so that people can actually use the system to a much more comprehensive way than they currently are. And so we know that when we bought the system, it was a standardized system, and sometimes when you're working in an ambulatory care area, you need a little bit more customization in order for you to be able to function. And so, it's been a long time since we've introduced a new technology to our workforce. They're used to using Meditech for the last 30 years. And so any new system, we knew that we were going to have to decrease some of the patient visits that we were at until people get used to the new system and try to navigate their way through that. And so when we're looking at the evaluation pieces, we're looking at our no-show rates. We're looking at how many patients that we're serving and comparing it to pre-go live. And then we're having those conversations with NSH as they prepare for go live, and our lessons learned are shared with them so that they can prepare as well.
MLA Rankin, with 4 minutes remaining.
Okay, yeah, and I guess how are we going to see it? How's the public going to see the impacts of the rollout? Will that be disclosed? How the impacts to wait times? Will that evaluation be made public so we can have a look? I mean, some doctors have told me that it's the system that was chosen was like buying a brand new car with a CD player in it, like that we went for the bare bones kind of system, and the add-ons aren't there to help scribe and things like that would help doctors. So my main question is to end this round is, what will that evaluation look like, and how will that be shared with the public?
Ms. Larocque?
So we publicly report our wait times to government on a regular basis, and so anybody can look at what our wait lists are on the government website in terms of how we're servicing patients. We talk to our patients and family advocates all of the time in terms of when they come in from a service delivery perspective, talking to the healthcare professionals they're seeing. We have not decided that we would do a big public forum in terms of what this looks like, but we're hearing from our patients and families all the time, and we're following up with them on any challenges or any struggles that they are having with the new system and what they're experiencing, and then working very closely with OPOR in terms of how do we make those enhancements to this particular system for the CIS, the Clinical Information System, so that we can get better at what we're doing and be more efficient in terms of the implementation. And I'm not sure if Annette is also involved in OPOR and leading it as well. I'm not sure if she also wants to add to that question.
Dr. Elliott Rose?
Yeah, thanks, LeeAnn. Thank you for the question. And certainly, as LeeAnn mentioned, this is a significant new technology. after 30 years of Meditech. And Meditech was no longer able to be upgraded, no longer able to, move forward with that system. And we had different systems across the province. And if you look at other jurisdictions across the country and beyond, having a clinical information system is important, not only to make sure we're connected and we have the right information, so clinicians have information at hand, and patients are not telling their stories multiple times to multiple people, that transfers and information sharing across the province is much more efficient. But it's also good for system planning. Then you have real-time information in order to make good decisions like the ones that we're talking about today. So we'll be looking at all of that, but it would be premature to start to look at all of the different indicators of success right now, because it takes 3 to 6 months really to get going with a new system like this. And as LeeAnn said, there are areas that have already knocked it out of the park, and they are doing well with the system and seeing that their services are 100% as they were before the launch. And we'll likely see improvements as we move along in those systems. So, my hope is that we'll look at it, we'll see efficiencies in the system even before it was introduced. It will take time. I'll make a comment because I have the opportunity from a workforce perspective, because we've done a lot of work in provincial workforce planning, and having a clinical information system is a key recruitment tool and retention tool. We've had people say, "Oh, you're still doing paper charting? No thanks, we're not coming to Nova Scotia." So it is a significant lift, a significant change for teams, and there's lots of supports, and we're learning more and more as we go, but an important change.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Elliott Rose, and there's 6 seconds remaining, so we'll move on to the PC party and MLA Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here today. The Health Committee, actually any committee, this is the most valuable time I spend as an MLA. Number one, hearing from the people doing the work in Nova Scotia, and hearing from the residents of the issues that they encounter within the system. So I truly want to say thank you all for coming in and sharing your experiences, specifically you, Kim. And I am the first member of the Government Caucus to speak today, so I want you to know that I am listening, I am hearing you. When we sit around this table, we don't just represent ourselves, we represent the million Nova Scotians across the province, and specifically today talking about women's health, 500,000, at least 500,000 of our population. So I like the last session we sat here and we talked about early years and where we're going and the effect that has over the next few decades, and the money that we can save, and the way we can better health for all Nova Scotians. Like, I feel like every time I come to Health Committee, we're having conversations that matter. And I have your opening remarks in front of me, and although you didn't share them, I hope you do share a little bit of that in some answers throughout today, and if not today, in further conversations when we leave here. And use that experience and hopefully to better healthcare for others. I truly value the women in my life. They're the most important relationships that I have. So hearing from you does make a difference. And in my role as a nurse, I've spent many a nights listening to my colleagues, predominantly women, share how their health has been affected over the years, and very quietly listened, to be honest, because it's important that I sit back and reflect, because I am not the one that is experiencing those things, and that's what I'm doing here today. And when I go back to the health department in my other role, I take all of this with me, and I also know that there is a significant amount of work happening within the health department, and we're focused on the idea of a women's health strategy, but I guarantee you we are doing the legwork to get there. And that's when I say that strategy isn't no small small feat. It's for half of the population of Nova Scotia. So I truly hope we get there at some point, and I hope that the work we're doing now, the positive work that we're doing now, is building on that. So thank you again. And so I know we've talked a little bit about what hasn't been working, but let's talk about what has been working and maybe some of the good things that have happened that maybe through that work will lead to more positive places. So I just want to say, like, where has there been progress and where will that progress lead us? Get there. Yeah.
Ms. Larocque?
Thank you so much for that question, because there actually has been a lot of positive work and progress that has been made in the last number of years, especially at IWK Health, and I'll pass it over to Annette to comment on Nova Scotia Health Authority. In terms of the IWK, through business case submissions and approval through the Department of Health, we've been able to get some additional resources in our peri-op environment. So with the additional gynecologists, we were able to also open up access to our ORs and have more throughput through our ORs. And so in our operating room, we were able to do an extensive amount of more cases, surgical cases. And also through that business case, we were able to develop what we call a procedure room, where we can actually take some cases out of the OR. They've been done safely in a procedure room so that we are making more room in the peri-op environment for more complex cases. And when we looked at our stats, we were able to do an additional 600 cases in the procedure room compared to the previous year, which is a substantial number of women and gender diverse individuals coming off of our wait list from a peri-op environment. The other initiative that we were been able to move forward progressively is our endometriosis and pelvic pain clinic. With the resources from our business case, we were able to implement a nurse-led clinic and also an NP-led care mapping for patients that are coming through that clinic can actually be assigned a nurse practitioner while they are waiting for the subspecialist gynecologist in order for them to be seen. And they're giving options of care treatments so while they wait. And what we have found is that sometimes those options that they're provided from a treatment basis actually negates them to have to even see the surgeon. So they're actually moving along and coming off of the wait list before, because they don't actually need to see the surgeon. The nurse practitioner is able to give them some care modalities that actually are successful, and they're able to go along the way and increase their quality of life. The other one that we have that I'll just note today too is our Maritime Center for Pelvic Floor Health. In terms of that, we have also implemented a nurse-led clinic there and have a nurse practitioner that sees patients as well. And the same sort of progress, and from a care mapping perspective, is seeing those patients without having to see the surgeon, giving them options, what they do while they wait. And we've actually seen a 40% reduction in the amount of women who are on that wait list because they were able to be cared for by the nurse practitioner and then do not have to actually see the subspecialist for that. In terms of other support that we are seeing, obviously, is our foundation is a huge supporter of the IWK, and just even having an inaugural women's health research position is going to transform in terms of how we're spending our time and what we're looking for in terms of the research pieces, so that we can actually put evidence into practice. And so we don't want a research person that's coming in to do evidence and it sits on a shelf for 25 years before practice changes are implemented, but we're actually looking at the research and putting practice and piloting things that we're learning right immediately, which is foundational to how we want to advance care going forward. And then the last thing that I'll add is the menopause clinic. With the recent announcement of the menopause clinic, IWK Health, Nova Scotia Health, the Menopause Society, and our partners with Primary Care will look at the Menopause Center of Excellence and create that moving forward in the next fiscal year. Right now, there's an RFP out there to look for a clinical location, and we will be starting hiring in the very near future of what that menopause clinic will look like. And I'll pass it over to Annette, because I know that she also has some significant progress that she can also speak to.
Dr. Elliott Rose.
Yeah, thank you, LeeAnn. I think it's important, since we're having this really good conversation about the importance of women and gender diverse health, I'm going to add to Ms. Gillivan, Jennifer's comments earlier, and others. Women are the backbone of global health. So we think about, they make up 67% of the world's paid health and care workforce, and only have 25% of the leadership positions. So I think also having women at decision-making tables is important. They deliver the equivalent of over $4 trillion in health care annually, and half of that is unpaid. And they influence 70 to 80% of all household health decisions. So we know this work is important, and we're so happy to share some of the really good stuff that's happening and more to do. Awareness and advocacy. So women's health and gender diverse health has been, I think, top of mind for us all here and globally, nationally for quite some time. We're so fortunate to have a person, a member, a woman, and a woman's voice, and a member of the public here to share experiences. And we have very established patient and family feedback mechanisms at Nova Scotia Health and at IWK, where we gather the voices of patients and families, we gather the voices and experiences of women and gender diverse people. That informs the work that we do. We have great partnerships, as LeeAnn mentioned, across the system with the foundations, with advocacy organizations, to advance this work and to contribute financially and otherwise to this work in really good ways. At Nova Scotia Health, I mentioned primary health care as a foundation and the successes there. There are also 26 well women and sexual health clinics across the province that can be accessed through your Health NS or the 811 for information. Women do not need a primary care provider. They can self-refer. And there are lots of different services provided there: prevention, screening, information on other aspects of women's health like menopause, and referrals to specialized areas as well. And I think it's always important to think about women's health as in a whole of woman approach. So at Nova Scotia Health, we provide very specialized women's health care in cardiac, geriatric, mental health, perinatal, gender-affirming gynecology, pelvic health, and breast health care. So we want to think about women and work with women in a whole of health kind of way. And we have equity-focused resources as well. So fortunate to stand up a nice Pride Health program with a small but mighty team of navigators who help women and gender diverse people navigate the system in a good way. And we have the gender affirming care that I mentioned earlier. And the Sisterhood Initiative is an example of interprofessional team of providers. They're all Black African Nova Scotian providers, and they go to communities in Nova Scotia and provide services and are part of partnered services as well. So really good things happening there. I will mention from a research perspective that some interesting stats and some good work that's happening with Nova Scotia Health researchers. So critical diseases affecting women are severely underfunded. Under 5% of all the CIHR-funded grants over 15 years studied were about women. And the top 11 global causes of disease or death for women are cardiovascular disease, diabetes, dementia, depression, and musculoskeletal disorders. 0.7%, so less than 1% of CIHR funding examined cardiovascular disease for women, and that's the #1 reason for women's mortality. So important to think about that. At Nova Scotia Health, the researchers are focusing on many areas of women's and gender diverse health, including postoperative pain, women's cardiovascular health, sex and gender differences related to kidney transplantation, prevention causes and negative health outcomes related to violence against women and gender-based violence, differences in risks for women experiencing mental health challenges, women's health and nutrition and food security, and gynecological and breast cancer and endometriosis. And I'll give you a couple of examples of quality improvement, which is also a way that we take information and make improvements in our system. As a learning health organization, we're very much committed to that at Nova Scotia Health. So increasing the percentage of patients aged 25 to 70, increasing PAP screening by 50% or more. Collaboratives on menopause care and information for women in the health workforce. So as I mentioned, a lot of women in the health workforce, and now we have menopause education for women working in health. In perinatal care, the Eat, Sleep, Console method is a family-centered care looking at neonatal opioid withdrawal. So that's important to support obviously neonates, but women and gender diverse people as new parents. And we're improving patient discharge information post-surgically and post-medical care. So those are just some examples of some really good work that's happening from a quality improvement perspective, but also from a research and service perspective. Thank you.
MLA Hilton.
And so just in follow-up to that, we know truly do need to some sustained focus and investment to improve the entire system, but we all acknowledge that there has been some systematic barriers that has influenced the evolution, access, and investment in women's health. Can we speak to what those barriers are? And maybe, Kim, you can weigh in on this, what you've encountered throughout your journey through the system, and where we can improve. And maybe I'll hear from you and the government as well on what barriers exist and where we can improve.
So we'll start with Ms. White.
So we're done in when? At 20 to 3? I don't think we have enough time.
We have 6 more minutes in this.
Unfortunately.
Well, give us wait.
Barriers are multifaceted. In my case, I had a hospital that had a policy. I am a very large woman, obese, morbid obese, fat, blubbery, whatever you want to call it. And I was told by my hospital that they couldn't provide my surgery, my invasive mammary breast cancer. It's not like I stubbed my toe. The healthcare system has been about as useful as the boob on my head, which I wore today, because that's exactly how I feel this particular government right now is not listening. Healthcare has been a problem for decades. It's not a right now problem. Things have gone this way for years, for decades. And I'm pretty sure every woman in this room has been a woman all of their life. Maybe some haven't, which we talk about gender diversity and transgender. But BMI should never, ever be a decision to prevent someone from life-saving surgery. I'm not talking about going into the hospital and having heart surgery or open heart surgery or lung surgery or kidney surgery or anything like that. But that anesthesiologist and my hospital in Amherst had a policy in place that the Northern Zone chief anesthesiologist said that was archaic. He called me directly. But the other barriers that I have encountered are not just those. When I made my story aware to the Health Committee last year, I believe it was MLA, I'm sorry, I can't see, yes. You stated that you were not going to move forward with, after MLA Wilson brought my story forward. And I believe you I can quote you by saying that we are going to let the nurse navigator policy program and the research do its work before we bring this forward. Well, I've never heard from a nurse navigator. I have no doctor. So who am I supposed to hear from? Those are the other barriers that we face when we have no family doctors. I've been without a doctor for 2 years. My MLA, who's sitting directly behind me, has been a huge support. Now, unfortunately, some of you in this room will think that I am a political pawn, that I'm put here politically by the other side. But I'll let you know that I am nor a Liberal or a PC or an NDP or Green Party or whatever party you want to talk about. I'm a very independent person. I believe in pro-life. I believe in pro-choice. I don't believe in it myself, abortions, but I believe every woman should have a right to choose. No man should choose that. But I'm quite sure, based on the makeup of this committee, 75% men, 25% women, that 75% of you do not have a clue what a woman goes through and the barriers that she faces. I am so sick and tired of everyone blaming me because I'm fat, that I should have died, that I should have taken pills to lose weight. Yes, it's my fault I'm fat. Yes, it's my fault. Yes, it is. It's my fault that I'm fat because I chose to be fat. I've lost almost 100 pounds in the last 2 years. But that didn't stop the people in this province willy-nilly blaming me for what a policy did. Not my health. My health, I had a heart specialist, I had all the testing done, and I was cleared for surgery. Dr. Help me with that. Dr. Farnick in Amherst was willing to do my surgery. But I had to wait 2 more months because I was dismissed by the IWK because I obviously wasn't fat enough, according to them, that my hospital should be able to do my surgery. So I want to ask a question of the 2 particular gentlemen on either end of that table. Now, I see that there's an elevation of weight on you, and I'm going to be polite because I'm a polite person most times. Have you ever had surgery? Have you ever been denied surgery? Because I'm pretty sure that you would tip the scales beyond the BMI. And according to the province, that BMI alone, and I'm quoting our health minister, by the way, BMI alone should not be the contributing factor for clearing a patient for medical procedures in this province. I was alone. That was the only reason. My health was fine. I came through the surgery
Ms.
fine.
White, the 20 minutes are
My
up.
time is up. I apologize for not allowing the other people at the table to speak.
Thank you.
But quite frankly, thank you.
How long does this round take?
As time allows, yeah, we've got 20 minutes left. Let me do the math.
7 minutes each?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start the second round of questions with the NDP Caucus, and we're going to set for 7 minutes each. MLA Wilson.
Thank you, Ms. White, for speaking today again and again and again. And I'm sorry that you have to. It must feel like the burden's yours to change good healthcare. When I would suggest the burden is not yours. So thank you for speaking out. If there was one thing this government could do based on your experience, one thing that could change, or even 2 things that would make your access to care and your experience better, what could they do?
Ms. White.
Well, that's a fully loaded question. There's a lot of things that the province could do, the majority government and the MLAs that work hard to try to help. But I really think that the eyes of our government need to be open to the fact that while it's important to have all of these tools that we have currently focused in HRM, we in the rural communities are suffering. We are suffering. I haven't had a doctor for 2 years. I have no idea where I am on the list. I've called to find out. I've stopped in at clinics asking if I can get a doctor. Oh, you have to find out where you were on the list. I have no idea. My MLA requested that I get a doctor when she referred my case to this provincial government. I have yet to hear from anybody to take my case. So I'm here. I think we need more focus. While we need focus on women's health overall, we need a focus on family doctors, for technicians, for radiologists, for them to be paid well, for the same equipment that's in the IWK Health Women's clinics needs to be in our rural communities. I shouldn't have to travel 2 hours for a follow-up mammogram. I should be able to do that in my own community. It shouldn't cost me, especially at today's gas prices, $200 to come to the city, just because there's no money and no focus put on our rural community. So I think that needs to be a focus as well. It's great that we're focusing on women's health, but we need to focus on the other things that are causing problems. Women are suffering. Women are, quite frankly, we're messed up. Even with getting mental health care. I have to wait 2 months. I called on March 30th. I have to wait 2 months to get my first appointment. And during my time with my intake application, I told her that I had thoughts of hurting myself because I didn't want to go on. Because it was so stressful. Dealing with cancer is hard enough. I've dealt with it before. I came through it before. But the mental stress of what this, I don't even want to call it journey because journey sounds pleasant. This lost ship without a sail on the ocean. The stress of that was debilitating. I'm a very strong woman. I think you can all gather that. I'm mentally strong, physically strong. I've been the cornerstone of my family, both my siblings, my parents, and my husband and my children. And I've contributed 4 women to this Nova Scotia project on women's health. One of my daughters was denied breast reduction surgery just in the last 4 years because she was, quote to the doctor, you need to lose a few pounds. She was slightly overweight, but she was denied this surgery with a neck issue that was causing her debilitating pain. She was missing jobs, her going to work, interacting with her children. So there are a lot of things, and I'm sorry I took up so much time, but there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. But in my particular case, the whole province needs to be looked at because BMI is still being used. And I know we need to fix our own personal health, but when you're denied surgery, life-saving surgery, because my cancer had already spread to 2 lymph nodes. So I don't even know if my breast cancer journey is over because I couldn't take radiation because of an infection. So let's be clear. Next year, I might not be here. I don't know. And I won't know that until June 18th when I have my next mammogram. When I asked for one on my other breast 6 months ago, and I don't have one till June. So that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you.
MLA Wilson.
Thank you, thank you. You mentioned access to care. One of the things that women in Nova Scotia don't have access to care is HPV, doing your own swab at home, where 5 other provinces can do it. The Pap smear is 100 years old today, this year, 226. It was invented in 1926. So 100 years later, Nova Scotia women are still using 100-year technology. We know that HPV technology screening is available. It's done by an analyzer like RSV. I asked a year ago the minister, when are we going to switch to HIV detection? She said, we're waiting on equipment. The analyzer's there, the same one that does screening for RSV. My understanding, the equipment that's not available is a labeler. I've spoken to many people at the IWK and through the province. We're the 5th. There's 5 other provinces. The ministers told us it would be another 2 years, which could make us the last province in the country to switch to HPV vaccine, HPV screening, which again is could be available across the province. I guess what I'm trying to ask for the frontline people, Dr. Bentley, can you think of any reason other than a labeler that we could not have HPV screening done in Nova Scotia in the next year?
Dr. Bentley, with 30 seconds remaining.
No.
Thank you.
What I've done my research on over the years, it's the best test. It needs to be implemented.
Thank you.
So there's 18 seconds. We'll let that slide to the next party. MLA Wilson.
Thank you for being that candid. One of your colleagues told me that you could roll it out in 6 months, and the cost for that to start up would be about $600,000. So actually less than what would endorsement for SAIL GP.
Thank you. Now move on to Liberals, MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to pick up on Kim's point around breast cancer screening diagnostics and the issue that was raised that we do hear from physicians around the shortage of radiologists and technologists. So that is driving up wait times for diagnostic imaging, and that can run routinely into hundreds of days for women looking for mammograms. So I just want to ask, what is the current vacancy for imaging technologist positions in Nova Scotia? We did look at a FOIPOP that shows Nova Scotia Health spends about $7 million a year on travel technologists last year. So how is, both two questions, the vacancy, but how is NSH going to invest in training and deal with attracting more technologists in the long term so that we don't need to spend so much each year on the travel technologists?
Dr. Elliott Rose.
And thank you for that question. I don't have all the data at hand, but I'm happy to loop back with you and give you specific vacancy information. I can talk about the strategies around recruitment for technologists specifically. So obviously doubling the schools and the seats that we have, and there is a program through the Health Sciences program at Dalhousie, and most of our recruitment for newly graduated technologists comes from there. The international recruitment is variable because the role of a technologist varies around the world, but we have had some success with international recruitment as well. If we think of health workforce in a couple of different buckets, recruitment being one of them that I just spoke about, the next being retention, thinking about workload, are technologists doing the work that they should be doing? Are they working to their full scope? So very active work there. Process improvements in the actual clinics so that people are freed up to do that work, and that improves some of the services and wait times. The introduction of assistant roles, so again, making sure people are doing the work that they're doing, that they're educated to do, so that Nova Scotians have that good care. A successful project that we've had in the nursing world, and IWK has had a similar success, is with the introduction of student nurses. We're doing the same, planning for the same with technologists, so when they're partway through their program, they can come and work in kind of defined scope roles in the clinics, and so that's been helpful. So there's a lot underway, and I'm happy to loop back with you with the specifics around vacancies.
MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that would be helpful for the committee. And as well, relative to retention, you just spoke about, how does the salary for radiation technologists and image technologists compare with other provinces? And then, so I have to get a couple in at a time because we're running out of time, but have you looked at immigration policies to try to do what is happening with nurses for technologists?
Dr. Elliott Rose, or sorry.
I can speak about the second question first if you want, and then Stacy has information around compensation. So yes, we have a federally funded program. We call it Niche 2. It's around newcomers, supporting newcomers to the province. And we look at 5 priority professions, and all of the roles in diagnostic imaging are part of that project. It's a provincial project, so again, includes the IWK, the regulators, government, labor skills and immigration, and then federally we're connected with ESDC. And part of that work is mapping out the immigration pathways and the licensure pathways for technologists so we can streamline that a bit better. And we have had some success, although as I mentioned, the pools for recruitment for technologists are limited around the world simply because the role is quite different.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott Rose. And Ms. Burgess?
So one of my areas is human resources. So I do have our vacancy rates for IWK. So we have a 43% vacancy rate as of April 2026 in ultrasound. Technologists for mammography, which is diagnostic and screening, we have a 26% vacancy rate. So, you know, as you can imagine, that's quite concerning as the VP of People Services. So the things that we are doing is around recruitment and retention, and there was just, so we're starting to see the effects of the bargaining increase for radiology technicians that put them in line, highest in Atlantic. So we're starting to see that. So it'll take time to get to the level that we want to see for vacancies. We were higher than that about a year ago. The other thing that I don't think Dr. Elliott Rose spoke about is increasing our seats with Dalhousie. So we have increased our class size for radiology technologists from 13 to 26, and diagnostic medical ultrasounds from 8 to 16, with the first graduates expanding programs in 2026-27, and we're looking at return of service agreements for all of those individuals.
Thank you, Mrs. Burgess. And MLA Rankin with 1 minute, 40 seconds remaining.
Okay, I'll just do the final question on the issue around the dense breasts that was talked about in the legislature multiple times, but specifically, we know that there's better detection with contrast-enhanced mammography technology. So does Nova Scotia currently have this technology, and if not, when will we be receiving it?
Mrs. Burgess?
Yes, so pleased to say that we are enhancing our mammography units across the province. So IWK, BG, Bridgewater, Kemple. I think it's important for us, especially when I just talked about the vacancy rates, to really understand what that might mean for appointments and for radiologists. So these technologies do need people to be skilled up and advanced in that area. And I think it's important for us to understand as well, too, that having a day dedicated for just those for CEM, a mammography, would, if we were able to do 20 a day of regular screening, we can only do 5 of the others. So I think as we work through this enhancement and start to roll it out across the province, we have to ensure that we're looking at it from a population basis and that we're using the resources for the most symptomatic as we expand in our technology. So it's hard when you have a 43% vacancy rate or 26% vacancy rate to ensure that you're able to meet the wait times that we want to, and to ensure that we're screening everybody that we would like to.
Order. Good timing. We'll move on to the PC party and MLA Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just before I pass it to my colleague, I just wanted to respond to the question that you put out, and personal me to you, that I think people want to see themselves in their government, and that's why it's important that I answer this question. And for the people in here today, every time I put on a suit jacket, every time I sit in this chair, which reminds me of a porch swing, every time I go anywhere, every time I travel, I am constantly reminded that, according to the BMI scale, I am morbidly obese. And so your comments today are heard and respected, and I just wanted you to know that.
MLA Corkum Greek.
Thank you, Chair. And as we find ourselves in the final minutes of today's meeting, I as well want to thank everyone who's appearing here today, those offering a very valuable first voice perspective, and those of you on the front lines and upper management regarding this issue. And again, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Cheryl Pugh, back there in the second row. She heard it was sinners to the front, and she chose the second row. But an obstetrician whom I first met when I was pregnant with my eldest saw me through in a rotation of an obstetrical clinic that I now realize was maybe ahead of its time in terms of the way it worked. Did not deliver my babies, got to be saved from seeing me in that state, but I received excellent care, and of course now I turn to Dr. Pugh as the medical executive director for Western Zone to keep me apprised and when I have questions or concerns. But I had excellent care. And for colleagues who've known me for a shorter period of time, I actually talked to the doc and double check later, I took excellent care of myself when I was pregnant. I could do for those babies what before and frankly after I have not been as faithful to. And so I wanted to reflect on something that was also gathered with the survey, which is, and this is not about blaming women, but it is a fact that women tend to forego their own health advocacy, whether it's making time for an annual checkup, for breast examinations, for pap smears, for follow-ups of any manner. They tend to, as caregivers, they put other people first, they're nervous, whatever their reasons. And so I wanted, before we ended today, to go to that. We've seen, it's not simply breast cancer care. We have a great mammography program here, but we need people to make appointments. We need them to be able to access services. We've seen a national attention on colon cancer screening. And so I wanted to ask, particularly those from the IWK, if you could do a thumbnail PSA right now to women and gender diverse individuals in Nova Scotia on that issue, realizing, as we've heard here today, and we knew coming in, that we have more work to do. Making progress, I think that's what I've importantly heard. Interest in being part of a larger national strategy, absolutely. But getting to the doctor, the NP, the clinic, if we could hear from you on that, I would be most appreciative.
Mrs. Burgess?
So the number one thing that I would say is, maybe not perfect, but we have a population health screening in the province. And I encourage everybody to do those tests. Don't let the colorectal cancer package just sit and expire. Book your mammography. Our rates right now are 43% for the province. In order to see real change, and we know the breast cancer diagnosis rates has stayed the same, with the cancer stats just came out yesterday. In order to see real difference, we want that at 70%. And so recognizing that, we need to enhance our screening times and things like that, but we also have a fair amount of the population who's not taking those tests and doing them. Go to your family doctor, nurse practitioner, and get your screening. I can't say, as a woman with 2 children, I often put myself last with a busy work life, and I say, don't put yourself last. Go and do that. It's important for now, and it's important for the future.
Thank you, Mrs. Burgess. Anyone else like to speak to that? Okay, MLA Cork and Greek. With 1 minute, 20 seconds.
With 1 minute, 20 seconds. Okay, I'll try to get through the question as quickly as possible to get to answers. But I know during estimates, there was a lot of focus on endometriosis and pelvic pain clinic. And I wondered if we can, again, speak to, because I think even myself as a woman, I'm not fully aware of all of sort of the scope of services or scope of conditions that may be identified and treated through those clinics. So if we could.
Ms. Larocque with 45 seconds. Dr. Bentley, sorry.
So the endometriosis and chronic pain, the endometriosis chronic pain clinic deals with those people that have significant pain problems. And the idea is that everybody else will be triaged through primary care and the gynecologist and or other providers, and then get to that setting, so that the people that need to be in the clinic, which is a multidisciplinary clinic with anesthesiologists, nurses, lots of physio support, etc., can actually be seen there to have the very specialist care. Not everybody needs that. A lot of things can be done by every step of the way to deal with that problem. It is a very frequent problem, and yes, we need to do more about it. But and across the country, it is the same issue everywhere.
Order. Thank you, Dr. Bentley. The time for questioning is now closed. To ask if the witnesses have any closing remarks, we'll start from the left with Dr. Elliott Rose, perhaps.
Oh, I had a few notes, but I'll do it off the fly. Thank you. So I think we've today heard the importance of women and gender diverse health. We've shared some really good successes, I would say foundational services across our province in primary health care, and some very targeted services to support women and gender diverse populations. And I think we've heard from our foundation colleagues and others that this is about collective action that also includes and must include, be central, is the voices of women and gender diverse people. So thank you for the opportunity today. There's a lot of important work that is happening and much more to do. And Nova Scotia Health looks forward to working in partnership across the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott Rose. And once again, my apologies for not pronouncing your name fully the first time. Thank you. Ms. Larocque?
Yeah, I just want to echo Dr. Elliott Rose's comments, and thank you today for the opportunity to be here and to talk about this important issue. As all of us up here, except for one, most of us are women, and so we actually, can resonate with all of the issues and things that we talked about today. And so this is a very important topic for us, and we look forward to partnerships and developing that strategy for women, either provincially and on a national basis. We have a lot of great things that we have success rates with, and we have more to do. I think collectively we'll get there if we all plan together. Thank you.
Mrs. Burgess?
Thank you. I want to take the time to thank you for having us here. Thank Mrs. White for her story. It takes a lot of courage to be able to sit here and tell those stories, and those are the stories that we listen to make meaningful difference. I know we spent a lot of time about whether it's a provincial health strategy or a national health strategy, and I just want to let everyone know that this topic is near and dear to our hearts. We have strategies that we're working on to improve the care for women and gender diverse in our province, and we're using the resources that we're given from government to do just that. So please know that despite a strategy, the work is happening, the investments are coming, and we're putting them to good use.
Thank you, Mrs. Burgess. Dr. Bentley?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to be here as a thorn between lots of roses. My department, the people in Central Zone, I think the gynaecologists in the province, do what we can to improve the care of women and gender diverse populations. We've done a lot of work. There is still an enormous amount to do, and we will try and work with everybody to get there, to improve the access and get to a better place.
Thank you, Dr. Bentley. And Ms. Gillivan?
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kim. It's not your fault. It breaks my heart when I hear women say that. It's been personally one of the biggest privileges of my life to support the IWK, and this particular work with women's health and equity for women's health is going to be something I'll do till I draw my last breath. We've got to get our heads around the fact that there is a systemic bias. The system was not designed for women. It was designed as the male is the standard norm. That's why women have so many adverse drug reactions, et cetera, and you've seen all the stats. Let's take this moment now and let's lead this country. It's going to happen. It has to happen. Women are done. And they're done being blamed for stuff, and they're done being not listened to and dismissed. You can see all the stats that are in our survey. Now is the time to step up. Now is the time to take all the great people, all the great work they're doing. You guys, everybody, come together. Let's make women a priority. We are the shock absorbers of the world. We are the backbone of the world, and we are growing. We're over 50%. And if we're going to have a future, a strong future for my grandchildren, it starts with actually supporting and prioritizing women. So let's make it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Creighton?
Unfair, I have to follow Jennifer. What I would say to Nova Scotian women and maritime women, continue to use your voice. Don't carry the burden that keeps you from getting health care. Fight through the bias, and it's going to take all of us to make this change, so keep fighting for it.
Thank you, Ms. Creighton. Ms. Liz?
Thank you for having me here today, and thank you again, Kim, for using your voice. We can't do what we're doing without these women's voices, and I just want to take the time to say that our province can be a leader in this country, and so we need to get there and continue doing the incredible things that IWK is doing and our province is doing, and we can do it together if we all work together and make those changes.
Thank you, Ms. Liz, and the last word goes to Ms. White.
Oh, my. Let's see if I can step up to the plate and say a few words. Okay. I am almost 60 years old, and I can honestly say in my 60 years of life, I've never been so disappointed and belittled by this healthcare system and by the lack of willingness to hear, not to talk about us, not to listen, but to hear us, to understand us. Government needs to work towards healing and helping all constituencies, not just the ones that matter in their own little bubble. And I find this across all political spectrums, federal, provincial, European, whichever one you want to look at. We don't focus and we don't listen. You need to hear us. Things are not working. I mentally have not been able to do my job. I work from home. I haven't been able to do my job fully. I haven't been able to support my family fully. I haven't been able to be emotionally there for my family over this past year. And that's debilitating. That's what this panel has talked about. That I contribute to this society, but my politicians are not contributing to my society. I need that. We, as women, need that. And it's been historic over the decades. When I was 23 years old, a long time ago, I know, can't remember, but I wanted to have a tubal ligation. We had had twin girls. I was told that we were going to have probably multiples again, and that just wasn't happening in my household. I'm sorry. 2 was enough, twin girls, and I went to my doctor to request a tubal ligation, and I was told, unfortunately, you're too young, and you have no sons. Okay? So we're talking, we're 23, I'm 59, so everybody can do the math, if not. How long ago was that?
36 years.
Couple of decades. Okay, right. Let's fast forward that to one of my beautiful twin daughters. At roughly the same age, well, a little older because she had 3 sons, 3 grandsons. She was told the exact same thing. She was too young. She wanted to have a tubal ligation. She had 3 children, and she wanted not to have any more, and she was told no. So that's 25 years later, which is only 13 years ago. Has it changed? I don't believe so. I'm wondering if the doctor at the table, the gynecologist, maybe can help me understand if maybe that's still a policy. I don't know. Maybe any other doctor on the panel. Is there a doctor, a medical professional? Oh, Mr. Wilson. Oh, sorry, MLA Wilson. I want to be very respectful. That's why I didn't read my remarks today. It's because I'm a respectful person and I respect government. But what I can't respect is being tossed out of the car into the ditch and be left for dead. And that's the way a lot of women feel, that we're being tossed aside, put in the ditch, and left to defend ourselves. And you're going to find out that we can't do it anymore. Women are going to start dying by their own hands or by the hands of government if something doesn't start getting done now. Do I still have a few minutes?
Yep, sure.
Okay. Now, we've talked about women's health and gender diverse health, but I also want to talk about healthcare in general. Now, I know you've all read my story, and I apologize if you haven't all read the full details of my timeline, which I included. But what I experienced with my post-surgical infection was not right. An EMS came to my home and told me in front of 2 witnesses that they could take me to the hospital because I was so infected, what I later found out almost teetering on sepsis. They left me at my home because they said the hospital, my hospital, wouldn't touch me, that I should call my surgeon. My surgeon's in Halifax, and I have a number where I leave a message. How is that helpful to someone who's got an infected breast and it's pus oozing out of it? And I lay there 15 hours, throwing up, fever of 102 and 103, and they leave me there. And thank God for Dr. Farnick, because she told me the next morning. And I eventually had to go through 8 weeks of excruciating pain. And my breast incision, the lower one where the tumor was taken away, completely opened up. I'm sure a lot of women in this room, and I'm sure a lot of husbands in this room, would not want to see the inside of their breast. My husband had to experience that because he was my caregiver. What happened to me didn't just happen to me. It happened to my whole family. I became not the same person. I became less of a person. I became just a fat woman who didn't deserve surgery because she was fat. And that's not right. People in power have responsibility according to our premier. Well, where's that responsibility with doctors and anesthesiologists and technicians to treat their patients, not just a statistic or a policy? That's what we need to do. Because of what happened to me, I'm going to inform you all now, you've created a monster. And I think you probably are all aware that I'm maybe dinged a little bit in my armor, but I'm a very strong person. And I'm going to advocate the hell out of this. And I'm going to make sure that he may not hear me or listen to me, but I'm going to have a little conversation with Mr. Houston at some point. Sorry, Premier Houston. I want to be respectful. But I got involved in a group. We wanted to call it WHEN, believe it or not, but we call it WATCH. There's a lot of women across this province that have not received care, timely care. They've gone out of province to get care. There's been human right violations by this province to women in this province. There were supposed to be changes to the BMI policies. I haven't seen those changes, and obviously by my daughter's experience with her breast reduction, those changes have not been made because she was declined her surgery. So we need change now. We need collaborative care departments, we need health departments, we need doctors, we need politicians, we need women, we need men, everybody. And we especially need the media, because the only way our voices are getting out there is through them. Because this government right now, the PC government in particular, is not truly focused. When you're spending, I think it's $1.2 billion to operate the government, I'm pretty sure a percentage of that could have been taken away to help the people of this province, not the social programs that are supposed to lift us up. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I saw that. But we're going to protest. I call to arms the ladies of this Nova Scotia. What would an Irish woman say? Come on, come on.
Ms. White, would you mind if we table your opening remarks so they can be shared with as long as the members agree with, they can be distributed? Is that okay with you?
Absolutely, you can share the...
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it
But I just want to say one more thing.
Okay.
I would like to thank my family, especially my husband, my daughter, my daughters, my children, my MLA, Dr. Rod Wilson from the NDP, who read my last year's statement, for bringing this forward, and for the Liberal Party for being supportive of me being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. White. So with that, I'd like to thank the witnesses for coming, and you're free to leave now if you want. I'll call like a 30-second recess till we do committee business. Or? I don't know, what do you think?
Well, it would be nice to get the first two things done.
There's two things to do we want to get done on it?
At least the
Okay.
first. Just announce the agenda setting. Whatever you think it'll take.
Is it okay if we have 10 more minutes with the members for, or would you rather? Oh, yeah. MLH, are you okay with that?
Agreed
You
by
guys okay with
consensus?
that? Yeah, we're good. Can I have the MLAs please return to the committee table?
Comment to me, he said, the other, my former purpose is crazy. He said, he started a whole movement. Put the numbers proper.
Order. So can we start with, if Ian doesn't sit down, can I start? Okay, so I'd like to report that the committee did vote and agreed consensus to extend the meeting till 3:10. So we'll start that now. Committee business is on the order. Committee business on next agenda setting is, so we're looking at May 12th. Each caucus is asked to send us topics and witness proposals to the clerk by Wednesday, April 29th. There are two topics left in the current agenda. The clerk is setting up the meeting on brotherhood and sisterhood programs for June 9th.
Yep.
And that's confirmed and okay to go. So we're looking for more topics?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to bring more topics, send them to the clerk by April 29th. And on May 12th, we'll have an agenda setting meeting. That's okay with everybody? And we wanted to finish another piece of business as well. Or do we have to vote on that? No.
No, we don't have to vote on the agenda setting.
So the next item is witnesses for meeting on emergency department closures. Dr. Nicole Bootler and her staff represent Nova Scotia Health and Care in Oldfield's absence. In the motion passed, the agenda setting on October 14th, 2025, the witnesses named were the Department of Health and Wellness Deputy Minister, the Nova Scotia Health Authority Interim President CEO Karen Oldfield, and most importantly, the Vice President of Medicine, Dr. Nicole Bootler. MLA Fedar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We understand, referring to Karen Oldfield, we understand that there was a correspondence that was sent out during traditional rules. So we're asking that the committee should write so that we have an understanding on who exactly, just have for clarification, or who will be in attendance when this topic is scheduled. So I'm just asking if, as a committee, we can write to have a bit of clarification on that.
Is everyone okay with that, or would you like to?
Yeah, I think Nova Scotia Health has to turn off your mic.
So Nova Scotia Health has written us and asked if it was okay if just Nicole Boutlier attended. Is the committee okay with that? MLA Wilson?
We objected to that last time and would continue to object to that. I do think it's important to hear from the CO. We're looking at strategic stuff, and also there's no real frontline emergency physicians attending, so I do think that it's important that the CO attend. It's not an either or.
So back to MLA MLA Corkum Creek.
I think the intention of my honourable colleague was to write again, realizing that some time has passed, and it is our understanding that Ms. Oldfield will be back. I believe, she was away for an extended absence, and that is why we are asking for a letter to see about our original request, which would be for her to appear.
Perfect. So we'll go with the original MLA Fadar's idea to write a letter and asking them about her availability. Okay. MLA Wilson.
Okay. I think I get it. So she's back, and what we're looking for is just a request that she's back as interim, so to speak, for several months. That we just request her attend. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
So we're good with that?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. We still have 5 minutes if there's more committee business we want to get to.
There's correspondence to be received in the committee and discussed if they wish.
So there's correspondence. You would have all received copies. Letter from the Department of Health and Wellness on March 12th in response to requests for information made at the December 9th, 2025 meeting on seniors and family pharmacare programs. We can accept that unless there's discussion. No discussion. Okay. Email from Nova Scotia Health on February 11th, following up on the February 10th meeting on the early years programs with links to further information to attached brochures. This is just extra information they sent voluntarily. Is there any discussion, or we just accepted for correspondence? Thank you. And letter and cover email from Melody McQuinn, March 11th, regarding consideration of supported decision-making frameworks in Nova Scotia. We can accept that for correspondence unless there's discussion. Okay. So next meeting is Tuesday, May 12th, as discussed, the agenda-setting meeting. And thank you all for being here today, and we'll see you on May 12th, if not sooner. Meeting adjourned.